Hi, good afternoon. I am John Neske, Chief of Police for the City of Bowie Police Department. I'll be making a brief statement and take limited questions afterwards. On February 8th of 2022, at approximately 5:05 p.m., Bowie officers responded to the 14900 block of Health Center Drive for the report of an armed robbery incident. Investigation revealed that the victim was approached by multiple male suspects armed with handguns who demanded the victim's property. During the course of this incident, the victim was able to produce a handgun and fired in what we believe to be self-defense, striking one of the robbery suspects. The suspects fled on foot and in a vehicle. Bowie officers searched the area and located two suspects, one of whom was injured during the encounter with the victim. Detectives were able to identify the suspect's vehicle, which had been reported stolen out of Virginia. The vehicle was later identified and pursued by Prince George's County Police Department, and both suspects were apprehended along with two firearms. Dane Gale, 17 years old, from Bladensburg, Jonathan Burgess, 16-year-old, from Upper Marlboro, and Jaden Jones, 17 years old, from Hydesville, have been charged as adults in the incident. One juvenile male suspect, a 15-year-old from Hydesville, has been charged accordingly. Jones was transported to a regional hospital for treatment of his injuries, and the investigation continues to determine if this incident is related to similar incidents in the region. I'll be taking any limited questions if there are any.
Similar incidents in the region, can you characterize how broad that may be and what jurisdictions?
Right now, we're looking primarily within Prince George's County and similar incidents such as robberies and carjackings.
I may have, because I'm a little deaf, missed which of the suspects was hit by gunfire and ended up at the medical center over there. Which one was it?
That was Jaden Jones.
Jaden Jones, very good. And were the two people that you all were in contact with who were arrested immediately after, before the car incident, were they the ones that were at the hospital center, or could you characterize how they were caught?
Certainly. During the initial canvass of the area, we located the 15-year-old juvenile around the health center property, and Mr. Jones had reported to the health center as a gunshot victim.
It was a walk-in. Could you characterize that individual's condition, medical condition?
I don't have that at the time, but my understanding is that it's not life-threatening.
We saw from our coverage earlier in the day that a helicopter appeared to be flying somebody out. Do we know if that individual was flown out for additional treatment?
He was flown out to another facility.
What can you tell us, please, about the victim and what the victim was armed with, and sort of the circumstances of that individual, whatever you can reveal?
Victim was a 38-year-old male. He was armed with a registered handgun from another state.
Did these suspects actually complete a robbery before the gunfire occurred? In other words, did they get anything from the victim?
Yes, investigation showed that the property was obtained by the suspects prior to the victim discharging the handgun.
Is there anything these suspects particularly have been, you mentioned these other incidents, we'll look into that as things develop. Is there anything they particularly targeted in terms of taking from people, or methods, or carjacking, anything like that?
But the only thing that I can rightfully talk about is the incident that we're discussing now at the health center. And that was, they appeared to have parked the vehicle and went to look for their target.
Just so I'm 1,000% clear, there's Mr. Jones, the four juveniles were involved in the carjacking, in the attempted robbery itself. The 15-year-old was located somewhere on the hospital property. Jones, who was shot, was literally walked into the health center and reported being shot. And then the two others had driven away, and that was the vehicle that you wound up locating. Do I have all that right?
That is correct, absolutely correct.
Okay. Can you say anything of what you've learned about the car itself that was stolen? I mean, I know you have to imagine there was a big press conference last week with Prince George's County standing next to DC police, just talking about how they're trying to collaborate better. on carjackings and instances like this. And I understand you said you're relegated to talking mostly just about this one incident, but investigating broader. So long roundabout way of just kind of asking, what's that communication been like? Have you all been looped into some of the carjacking issues that have plagued the area? And can you say anything about what you've learned about this particular car and whether or not that gleans anything additionally investigatively?
This particular car was stolen out of Virginia. It was not involved in a carjacking, just a straight stolen vehicle. I will say that our investigators are in constant contact with Prince George's County and other neighboring jurisdictions, sharing information. I can honestly say that last night when we did have our suspects, we reached out to the county to make sure that there weren't other incidents that were tied to immediately. So the information sharing is very vibrant and constant.
And can you say anything about, so this was an attempted robbery, not an attempted carjacking, is that right?
When the robbery came first, they took his keys in anticipation of taking his vehicle as well. So the suspect was charged with both attempted carjacking and robbery.
And can you say anything about just what you said? We're looking into things more broadly. What's that look like from your perspective? I mean, what types of things are you doing and trying to see if there's something that could potentially be bigger at play here?
Certainly, we've been in contact with our both municipal and county partners, sharing intelligence and sharing information to see if there are overlapping issues or overlapping trends or descriptions that can lead to other cases or other closures.
And I would somewhat assume that you wouldn't bring that up in case, unless you thought there could be something there. I mean, has that information and intelligence sharing led you anywhere yet, definitively or not, that you can say?
Not that I can say definitively, but there are avenues of investigation that are being opened, and hopefully more details will be able to be released by those jurisdictions.
Hey, Chief, what would you just share with the community about, nobody here is over 17 years old. They're armed with firearms, stolen vehicle, 5:05 p.m. I know it touches people. They feel as though some of these individuals are really dangerous people. How would you characterize all of that for the public?
I would agree that these individuals are dangerous people, as evident by their actions last night. I believe that this is probably part of a larger trend that we're seeing in the area and around the region, especially as it pertains to juvenile crime at the moment. Unfortunately, I don't have all the answers as to how and the whys and the what fors. But when you look at an overarching pattern that we're seeing in the region, it does seem to have more violent crimes being committed by juveniles.
Do you have any feelings about what may seem to be empowering kids at this age to do these things?
I think there's a conflux of things happening. Again, I don't have all the answers, but if you just look at the adult population and the rise of assaults and bad behavior and frustration, think about dealing it as a juvenile and lacking the maturity to process some of the things that are happening in the world today. It's going to lead to, if you don't have those support systems, if you don't have any other kind of boundaries or guardrails on the system, you're going to get these kind of actions, I think.
Great. And could you fill in a detail for us, please? The white car fled, and there was, according to the release here, a chase and a crash later. I'm unclear what the time frame was, where that occurred, and all the rest.
Certainly, the chase of the white vehicle happened around 9:00 p.m. last night, and the pursuit ended in Glendale.
And there was a crash, and any of the individuals that hurt there?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, now it's Prince George's County that was taking care of that end of it.
Yes.
Okay, Glendale, got it. You happen to have a 100 block on the Glendale crash?
I don't have it in front of me, but I could probably try to find it.
I'll talk to you after we're done then. Thanks.
Certainly.
Sorry, just so I'm 100% clear in characterizing things correctly. The opening of investigative angles, is it specifically relegated to these juveniles who you have arrested, or is there, when we say open investigative angles, specifically with them, bigger picture? I'm just kind of curious.
Sure. The investigative angles are pertinent to the suspects that we're speaking of. So what is happening is we're sharing intelligence. those other agencies are looking into incidents that have occurred in their jurisdiction to see if anything matches along the lines of these particular suspects.
Hey, Chief, are there any details you can give us on the weapons, because they're in the news? For instance, modifications, caliber, were they handguns, were they assault pistols? Any details on the weapons you could provide to us?
I don't have it again at this time, but if you like, I can try to follow up and get it for you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any further questions? All right, while I do have your attention, I would also like to point out that we had a closure in our homicide, our first homicide of the year. The Prince George's County Homicide Unit identified and arrested a suspect in connection with the fatal shooting in our city in early January. The suspect is an 18-year-old Nicole Saunders of Bowie, and he's charged with murdering 24-year-old Eugene Kelly Gray of Bowie.
Hey, Chief, before I let you go, one of my colleagues just texted me. Tell us about why you made the choice on charging as an adult for 3 of these teenagers.
Severity of the crime, and the fact that it involved weapons.
Sergeant Moten, you are requested at the front desk for citizen assistance. Sergeant Moten, citizen assistance at the front desk. Thank you.
Aside from Sergeant Moten being called someplace, are there any other questions?
Where was that? That homicide was where and on what day?
It was on January 9th in the 15400 block of Empress Way.
Thanks for being so generous with your time. Appreciate it.
No worries.
Really appreciate it.
And thanks for waiting.